Hi, my name's Ash.
And I'm Callie.
And welcome to Paved with Gold, the eating disorder recovery podcast. I would like to acknowledge the traditional landowners on which Callie and I are recording and extend the same respect to the traditional custodians of the lands from which you are all listening. We're back with another special episode. Normally we release every fortnight, but every so often, if there's something, a particular topic we want to talk about, we just jump into your feed and just have a chin wag. So we're back with one of these. And as you know from the title, this is all about the holidays. And given it's the end of the year.
Woohoo!
Yeah.
Sorry, I'll contain my excitement. Go.
Given it's the end of the year and the holidays are getting nearer, especially for any US listeners, Thanksgiving is just around the corner. We just wanted to collate a bunch of tips that you can take away to help you navigate what can often be a very overwhelming time when you have an eating disorder. And we're going to touch on some points for carers as well at the end, which hopefully will be helpful for anyone who may need it. So, Callie, how do you feel about the holidays?
You know how I feel about the holidays. No, so I have two things to say about the holidays. I used to be the person.
And just a side note, we did not coordinate this, but obviously I have red hair and you were wearing green, so we're in Christmas colors today. So
I swear this was just like it wasn't. Wasn't mindful about like us recording today and wearing this. I swear to God.
Yeah, you just ooze the Christmas spirit all the time.
I just love Christmas. Santa, I know him. No, so obviously I love Christmas. Look, I love gift giving. I am really into buying Christmas presents for everyone. I've got Christmas with a child. Like I get to have a night before like a Christmas Eve box that we open. I'm getting that made this year. I actually made the one last year and it was very dodgy. So I'm getting one made this year. It's like this beautiful wooden thing that has like the Cote family on it. And I get to fill it with like we're going to have matching Christmas pajamas and we're going to have like matching cups. And I can't wait to put the Christmas tree up and like we're getting Santa photos done. But this year, like we're getting Santa photos done on the beach. And have I mentioned I'm excited?
You can't see me, but I've got my hand over my face.
So I love Christmas time.
Yeah, really? No, I don't know. I'm not a Christmas gal. I'm a bit of a Grinch. And by a bit, I mean a lot of a Grinch. I don't know. It's just a lot of forced merriment.
Totally.
And like it's stressful and you always have to be places and it's always hot and I hate the heat.
I live near the beach, so like, you know.
Yeah, well, and I don't like the beach either. I'm like the worst Australian ever. So,
well, yeah.
It's like you just have to be lots of places and you're tired and all of that. And
to be fair, I guess with my family, I'm very lucky in the sense of like we have very chilled out Christmases. Like we're very much like we don't do all of those really big, you know, must be here, then must be there. Like,
well, I don't either. But like, you know, growing up with, you know, well, later on having split parents, it was there's always the guilt, like, oh, if you don't spend Christmas with that person, then you feel left out and all that kind of stuff. And but
it can be really hard for people.
It can. And especially when you have an eating disorder, that just adds a whole extra thing into it, right?
100%. So like I'll caveat, like obviously I'm excited, but I'll caveat if you can tell, like, oh my God. But I'll caveat that with saying that I used to hate Christmas. So when I had, you know, when I was actively in my eating disorder, I hated it. I dreaded it every year. I was so stressed. Like I remember when I was living overseas, it was like, yes, I get to avoid this. Like I can it's hard to avoid Christmas when you live in London because it's everywhere. But it was like, oh my God, like I don't have to do, like there's no expectations on me. Because this is such a focus around food, right? And there's such a focus around, you know, people and people being happy. And it's like, well, I don't feel happy. I don't feel like there's anything to celebrate. I don't feel like I can cope with this like huge changes in the way people eat. Like I have my meal plan. This is hard enough for me already. Just a whole bunch of feelings. And then also highlighting the fact like, another year is gone and this is where I am.
Yeah.
That can be really hard. And grief and just,
I think the expectation, I think, is one of the hardest things. Like all around, like the holidays are super stressful. So much family. It's so much food. Like, let's not kid ourselves. Like,
Yeah,
this is the time where it's like you celebrate with food.
it is.
Food
It's
brings
around.
people together.
It's
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. There is a focus. Yeah,
And as
for
much as
sure.
people say like, oh, don't focus on the food, focus on everything else, and that is part of it, but also that's it's hard to ignore that when that's such ingrained in society. But then also like this, the socializing expectations and people like reflecting on the year that's been, and like what if all you did throughout the year was survive, which, let's be honest, is fucking
Huge,
awesome. Go you. But you
like
can't
huge.
really say that in a family dinner without making people feel uncomfortable. Although,
Totally.
you know what? Absolutely you should. If that's what you're feeling, freaking say it, you
And I
know?
guess like with that, we know there's so many intersectionalities, like,
Mhm.
oh gosh, what happens if you don't have family? Or what happens if you don't get along with your family? What
Or if
happens
there's
if there's a
sensory
lot of trauma
overload.
there? Oh my God, sensory overload. Like, that's a
It's
huge one. Absolutely. Yeah. It can be a lot.
But even like the requirement just to be always on, despite the whole having spent the entire year in that state.
Totally.
But then
Yeah.
also you're expected to take some rest and recharge and all of that. It's just there's so many conflicting messages of like, oh no, take this time to relax. It's like this is
Mm.
this is like a
Mm.
super high stress situation. I can't relax. So it's a lot.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And then I think the forced merriment, I think for me, now that I'm well, I'm just a Grinch. But you know, but when it comes to when you're around family and everything,
Mm.
there's like you feel like you're sort of expected to be happy and be merry and jolly and be happy, and if you don't, then you're ruining Christmas. That's what your thoughts might say, not that you're actually doing that. So it's
Yeah.
just a lot to sort of go through and experience. So that's why we're going to talk about this today, and hopefully we can make this as a guide to make this time more manageable for you. So I guess the first thing, and it's you already said it, Cals, it's, you might have a different meal plan to everyone else, but when in doubt, just stick to it. Just stick
Yeah.
to your meal plan, even if that means eating something different than everyone else. And yeah, it may make you feel awkward, but it's what's keeping you safe at that time. And if anyone makes comments, just say, this is what I need to eat right now. Thank you, Aunt Sharon. Like,
Yeah.
just say,
Aunt Sharon. Aunt Shazza.
Aunt Shaz, yeah,
Auntie
like this.
Shaz.
This is what I need to eat right now, and if you want to eat more,
End
if
of
you feel
conversation.
end of conversation, exactly, that's it. And then I think we'll talk on this later, but if you need to talk to somebody and have like an advocate for you who can intervene in those kind of things, it's like, nope, that's what they're eating. That's that's fine. That's what
Yeah.
they need to eat.
Kind of is what it is. Yeah.
It is
Yeah.
what it is.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll talk about that a bit later, but those are honestly, that's like one really easy step to do is you may feel like you have to, you know, indulge in these foods. And if you feel comfortable and you feel okay and supported and you want to sort of maybe, try out something off your meal plan with the right support, do it. Great. But if you don't feel that you can have and take those, you're not in the space to take that step, then don't. Just stick to your meal plan. That's totally fine.
Totally. And I guess it's a conversation you can have with your dietitian perhaps
Mhm.
previously too as well, because I guess, what is the conversation with your dietitian? Oh, it could be a conversation of, typically my family, we kind of do this for Christmas.
Mhm.
This is what Christmas lunch looks like. This is perhaps what we do for breakfast, blah, blah, blah,
Especially
blah.
different cultures as well. If it's,
Totally.
not just Christmas, of course, we're using this as a very generic term, but if
Yes,
you've
for
got
sure.
like,
Yes.
like 3-day feasts of something, or if that's what your
Yeah.
family does, or if that's what your culture does, you do something different. We might use the word Christmas interchangeably. We're using
Yes.
this as the end of year
Broad.
celebration, broad
Broad.
terms here. Yeah. So any
Yeah.
sort of
Take that as
holiday.
like a across the board kind of
Yeah.
term. But yeah, it could be a conversation with your dietitian, right? Of like, cool, this is kind of what it usually looks like. How can I make that work with my meal plan? Like right now, I might not be in the space of kind of, branching out more. And that's okay if you are in that space. Incredible. It's a good time to challenge all of that. But perhaps it's a conversation of, cool, stick to my meal plan, but how can I kind of, make this work around perhaps what my family have? So, I'm still going to have my breakfast.
Yeah. And incorporate a few things.
Totally. So I'm still going to have my breakfast, and maybe my family does this for breakfast. Cool. How can I make that work for me? And I guess that's a conversation that could start being had now.
Exactly. And you could also talk to your dietitian of, oh, I'm got like maybe you want to make your meals the day before so that you're not in the kitchen whenever all of this, stuff is going on, and
Mm,
your stuff is pre-made, pre-planned, and that way you can just pull it out of the fridge and say, yep, good to go. So you don't
yep.
even need to be around it. Like if all you have to do is and you're just, or you take yourself away, or you just arrive for mealtime and then you pull it out of the fridge, boom, you're done. If that's how you can manage it, do it.
So many possibilities, and absolutely talk to your teams and start these conversations now, because it's absolutely, great to kind of start planning this stuff now. It's never too early to do that, because it can be like it, again, individuality, but it can be worked around you. It's just finding what does work for you.
Mm.
Definitely. So I guess on that, you kind of mentioned, Ash, taking yourself away, or, maybe in your room, or maybe you're, somewhere. But a really important component, I think, of when especially you are in perhaps anxiety provoking situations, is planning time for yourself, and that might look like actually booking that in. And
Yeah.
perhaps that looks like, going to, if you've got a safe person there, I understand not everybody will have a safe person that they can lean on, and we can talk about that. But if you do have a safe person there, perhaps, you talk to them previously and say, hey, look, this is kind of at these times of day, I might want to just step away and have time to myself, whether that looks like, I want to read something because that's going to help me, or I want to go have a shower, or
Yeah, I was gonna say you mentioned that in a previous episode. Yeah. Just
yeah, or showers are, my thing. And perhaps that's the thing that really grounds me. So if I'm feeling really like, for me, usually it's a sensory overload. And if I'm feeling really sensory, kind of like, oh my gosh, I'll just go have a shower. Or, my family specifically are always around water around Christmas time. So that's really perfect for me. Because I can
Yeah,
then
I
just
was
go
actually gonna
maybe
say, like, if you live near the beach, or near the water, you
go
can
for a
go
beach
for a swim,
swim.
or go for a walk, or just say, "Hey, how about after lunch we go for a walk?" Just to kinda take your mind off it, not in like a compensatory kind of way. That's not what I'm saying.
No, I was just going to say, I think of a lot of my clients, if you can kind of tap into a value with that. So,
Mm,
say not in a compensatory way, it could be, perhaps as this is going to be everyone's situation, but perhaps, you've got a little person that's in the family that you really enjoy connecting with. And hey, maybe I'll take that little person away and go play, in the sand, or go collect shells, or go and, my daughter loves to, like, she loves the waves crashing in. She does her little happy feet near the waves crashing in. So go do that, or go to a park and go on the swing, like whatever it is. Like if you want to, like, you can talk, and this again, talk to your team about it. Perhaps it's tapping into a value that both gives you that time, or plus taps into a value, or perhaps it's just, I just need to go and sit in the car for 5 minutes
yeah.
and put a song on, whatever it is.
Yeah, and I mean, also, this may not even just be like at the holiday event. The holidays is also like the full end of the year. If you're working, if you're not, there might be a lot of people who are at work, and then now they've got time off, and so there's always maybe this pressure to sort of socialize now that everyone's free.
We must
And
all go do something
it's
all the time.
you actually
You
don't.
don't have to.
You've had a really big year. You're allowed to rest and take time for yourself and book that in. Like, say, there was a great phrase that I heard recently, and honestly, it changed everything when I heard it, which was, having free time is not the same as being available.
Mhm. Oh, yeah.
You can have free time, but you are not available. There's a big difference.
Oh, 100%.
Like, that free time is, if you've booked that out for yourself to just do nothing, that is time you do not have free anymore.
100%. I love that. And that's something, and that's something, like, I have to work on frequently. Like,
Mm.
I have to actively be like, you know what, Callie, like, it's actually okay to, and oh, I love that. I really love that. That's a good one.
Another thing that you could do, if honestly this time of year is just like so stressful and you honestly don't think that you can do it, and you think you might do yourself more harm by going to certain events, don't go.
Yeah.
Just don't go. If you're worried it's going to be too triggering or too much, just sit this one out. It's perfectly okay. It's harm reduction, right? If
Mhm.
going to this and fulfilling this social obligation is actually going to cause you more harm emotionally, mentally, physically, then don't go.
If we look at the cost benefit, right? Like, is it actually helpful to force yourself to go? And I mean, I guess it's a a balance, you know, like
Absolutely.
I definitely think that, you know, sometimes it's good because I feel like, you know, sometimes your eating disorder is like, nah, just don't go to anything
Yeah.
because, you know, it loves isolation. So it's definitely a balance, but like, and
Yeah.
actually checking in and, you know, but, you know, you don't have to go to everything.
Yeah. I mean, it's not a matter of avoidance, but there's honestly no point in pushing yourself so
No,
hard that you're actually going to cause damage.
burn out, right? Yeah,
Exactly. There are always going to be more holidays. There's always going to be more chances to do these sort of things.
yeah, for sure.
Like I think if you know that things are going to be really stressful, don't push yourself. And especially or if you maybe there's like 3 events and you may only be able to handle one of them or 2 of them.
Totally.
But then one of the events there may be someone super triggering there and you
I was
don't
going
want
to
to
say
go,
that. Yeah,
you
exactly
know?
right. Yeah.
And they say, "You know what? I actually can't deal with that person right now. So
Yeah.
I'm not going to."
Is it going to put me into an active, you know, trauma episode? So maybe it's not worth it. So it's again, have these conversations with, you know, your team or, you know, your trusted people or whoever's around you as well.
Exactly.
Because yeah, such a valid thing to do. Totally. So I guess again, you've leewayed perfectly here again,
Oh,
Anne.
look at us go.
Honestly, it's almost like um, know your triggers and plan for them. So that's, you know, you just gave a perfect example of a trigger, right? If that person, somebody, if it's a person, you know, perhaps it's not going, or perhaps it's choosing, you know, small doses of being around that person, or perhaps it's choosing a contingency plan of where am I grounding things, where are the things that are going to keep me safe.
Or even writing down responses of what you might say to them when they say those things that are going to be triggering to you. Like we all know that probably diet talk might come up, especially around New Year's. Oh my God, don't even get me started.
Yuck.
There's something on that later. Um, but it's planning. If they're going to say something, maybe write them down of what you're
Yeah.
going to reply to them if you
And
feel able
yeah.
to.
Yeah, totally. Or, you know, maybe it's planning to, okay, they say this. So my response will be, I need to go to the car and just sit there for 5 minutes because I can't.
Mhm.
You know, there's a whole lot of different things, but planning, absolutely. And it could be, you know, specific people. It might be around specific foods. It could be drugs. It could be alcohol. It could be environments. You know, we know triggers could be anywhere. So it's just, I guess, you know, it's that concept of being aware. And we talk a lot about awareness and a lot about how
Mm.
that's such a protective factor and a really huge thing that everybody can do to protect themselves and protect themselves from their eating disorder, from their trauma, from a whole bunch of things. So it's being aware of that and kind of, you know, having plans in place when you know that, you know, these things might be triggered. So yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, one of the other things is if you identify these triggers, one of your sort of reactions could just be, okay, I'm going to implement my exit strategy now. And you can have an exit strategy. In fact, you are allowed to leave early. You are allowed to arrive when the meal starts, and you're allowed to leave when the meal ends.
Oh, I've left Christmas before.
You can leave in the middle if things are honestly just too much. There's also another great saying that I heard. Actually, it was Elka Graham. So she was one of the Olympic swimmers in that relay team when
Oh,
in the
yes.
yeah
I
when
know who Alok Agreement.
yeah.
Yes.
So for those who don't know, this isn't really important, but I'm going to tell you anyway.
We need to know. Yeah. I mean, now we're curious.
Yeah, she was part of the Olympic swimming Australian swimming team, and they got disqualified from their winning their relay race because some of the swimmers jumped into the pool to celebrate before the rest of the swimmers had finished the race.
Yeah.
So there was a big uproar. They got their gold medal stripped from them. It was they were a national disgrace, you know, quote
It's a
unquote.
whole thing.
It was a whole thing. Anyway, but no, I remember Elka Graham came. She was one of the swimmers. She came to my school to talk to us about stuff. And one of the things was leave when you're having fun, because that way you can leave on a high note.
I like that.
Because oftentimes, like, I think she was talking about it in the context of like going out and having like a big night with your friends, especially if there's like alcohol involved. And oftentimes people drink too much and then you say the things that you regret, or then something bad happens and then
I
the
don't
whole
remember
night.
anything, or it ends up in me passing out. So, you know, like,
Yeah, and then the whole night is ruined or tainted. So she said, leave when you're having fun. And I think that can also be used in a whole bunch of scenarios. Like if
Yeah.
I think it's just leaving on a high, if that makes sense, you know?
Yeah.
Leaving
Don't wait
when
until you're triggered, or don't, like, you don't have to be like, I don't, yeah. No, I like that. I really like that.
yeah, look, like it might just be sort of a natural pause in the day, and you can be like, this is a good time for me to leave. And then you can do that. And I mean, leave when things are going well, because if you feel like you've done a really good job and you're
Yeah.
feeling really proud of yourself, all of that kind of stuff, and you'd be like, cool, I don't want to overstretch. I'm cool. I'm going to leave this where I am now.
Yeah. Great. Yeah, I love that. And I guess that takes us to our next point, and something that I think is really great to speak about and think about. And actually, a lot of my clients are doing a really great job of already thinking about this. A lot of the time over the Christmas period, your clinicians or treatment team might not be available. They're very
Mm-hmm.
likely going to be taking Christmas holidays or summer holidays or a holiday or time off, whatever, however long that might be.
Yeah, like I think I don't know I don't know what it's like everywhere else, but in Australia, more often than not, if you're working in like a corporate space, especially in healthcare, if maybe it's not so much in emergency services, but there is a forced office closure. You know,
Mm,
places will like a lot of businesses will force their
yeah, there'll be
sort
a
of
shutdown over
staff,
kind of like December.
yeah, from like right before Christmas to New Year's or just after New Year's, or sometimes even after that. So,
And some people might take longer, right? Like some people might
yeah,
be like, oh, I'm going to take this opportunity to go overseas. I have family I want to
yeah,
visit.
I'm going to have a holiday. Like, and that's totally
Yeah.
understandable. And it may seem like, oh, you're going to be left in the lurch a little bit, but it's as long as you plan for it, which is what we're talking about.
Yeah, exactly right. So that could look like, making sure you have all your appointments booked in for when they return, so that there isn't that a bigger gap than there needs to be. So making those.
And before you go away as well.
And before you go, yeah. So you're seeing them, but also like in those appointments, and I'm sure all the clinicians that you're working with are going to be really great at this, but having those conversations with your clinicians, with your practitioners, and say, how will we manage this? What happens if this happens? Or who else can I reach out to? If I'm in a crisis, who do I call or who do I reach out to? So having those sort of conversations, and I think it taps into a little bit of safety planning as well for some people.
Yeah.
I think some people, I think over this period, I think is going to be a really great tester for some people to see, hey, actually, you need to give yourself more credit because you are absolutely capable and able to cope. But then for some people, of course, that's not going to be the case. So
Yeah.
it might be a conversation of safety planning and what does that look like? And if I am in a crisis, what do I do? So making sure you have those conversations and, having those conversations now with your clinicians, which I'm sure, I know a lot of my clients' clinicians are having these conversations, but
Yeah.
yeah, plan for it.
And also have contingency plans for when things don't go well. Because as we've mentioned before in many episodes, things often don't go according to plan. So
Yeah, and you need to have these things thought about before it comes to that.
and before it happens, and
You
have
don't want to
like
be like,
sort
oh
of
shit, now what?
yeah, and have that sort of what's it called? That sort of pyramid of needs, right? Or pyramid of what's
The
it called?
hierarchy of needs,
That's it. But also
scaffolding. When, like, do you mean like when things go wrong? So like,
yes,
so at the top would be like complete disaster. So what do I do then? Does that
yes,
look like going to emergency? Below that could
yes,
be, I'm feeling really XYZ. So what does that look like? Do I need to call a lifeline? Below that could be, I could call, I might reach out to a loved one or I might reach out to a friend or yes, I
yes.
get what you're saying.
That thing. I don't know what it's called.
Scaffolding, I think,
Yes.
is probably what you'd call it.
Yeah.
Just give you a bit of like a plan for all of the things, like for all of the scenarios.
Exactly. That
Yeah,
thing.
totally.
I'm glad you knew what I was talking about.
I was like, I think I'm on to you here. But also, I guess, leaving room to recognize and highlight and give space for the good stuff. Like, it can be, I guess, focusing on, and it's funny, I had this conversation with one of my clients yesterday. I think for a lot of things within the mental health world, we really focus on the negative or the neutral.
And what could go wrong?
Yeah, what could go wrong? But like, what could go right? And actually, how could, I think of my anxious clients, how could that be actually a positive thing for you? Because it's actually not, I think of myself with anxiety. Yes, there's a, it feels like there's a lot of negative things to having anxiety because it makes a lot of things hard. But actually, what are the good things that it gives me? What are the, because it's not all bad, but I think we just highlight that. So leaving space and room to celebrate and, allow yourself, it's okay to have fun. And if you find yourself having fun, that's a great thing. It doesn't mean that, you're doing an eating disorder badly, although in inverted commas, like we want people to do eating disorders badly, if that makes sense. But do you know what I mean? Because then I feel like people feel a lot of guilt then for what it might mean and read into it so much of like, oh my God, I actually enjoyed myself. What does that mean? We don't need to think about that. Like allow space for happiness and allow space for the positive as well. And you might want to like actually scaffold around that as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Oh, thank you.
That's why you're here.
Thank you. Stop it.
You're here for many reasons. Another thing that I think is really important around the holidays is try not to compare yourself to
Oh, yeah.
everyone else. This goes for real life. It goes for social media. Social media in
Mhm.
particular is like, honestly, another quote that I love, which is never compare your behind the scenes to someone else's highlight reel, which
Absolutely. Because you're going to get a lot of those coming into the end of the year. You're going to be on Instagram and see a lot of people wrap it up. And you know what? That's a really nice thing for people to do. And that's actually, I love that people do that, but I can see and feel, and I remember so deeply how horrible it felt when I didn't have that highlight reel.
exactly. And it's like, why can't I have that? All I want is just to be happy. All I want is just to be quote unquote normal.
Mm. Oh, and here I am. This is what I've done this year. Yeah.
Yeah. Even if it means like just switching off from social media for the time being, which
Oh, well, you
honestly
need to.
I think we all need a cleanse every now and again because social media is both a good thing and a terrible thing. Um, so just try not to sort of compare yourself to, and even if you're in the Instagram recovery sort of world, which again,
Mhm.
that is absolutely a future episode and we're going to talk about it because sometimes it can be really helpful and sometimes it can be absolutely not helpful.
Yeah.
So be aware if you are engaging in those sort of communities, be aware of certain people who you may follow for certain reasons, but they can be triggering to you.
Mm,
Be mindful of those kind of accounts that are out there.
yeah.
And just be sort of mindful of the kind of content that you're consuming. I know it can be really hard, especially because social media can be such an escapism for a lot of people, but just
Mm.
I think be very, very mindful of that. And if you're a parent, maybe also or a carer, maybe have a look at some of the things that your loved one is
If
consuming
you're able to, yeah.
or having those kind of conversations because I think it can be really hard. You don't want to like police what they're looking at, but it can be something that you really kind of need to monitor.
Could be like help shifting that narrative a little bit, right?
Exactly. Or maybe saying, "Oh, I actually found these great people online.
Mm,
Have you thought about following these people?" And have
yeah.
diversifying the feed a little bit.
Because I think, with that, like we talk about like the highlight reel, right? And, a lot of people will be putting up highlight reels, but I think you tapped on that perfectly, Ash, in that like within sometimes the ED recovery space on Instagram, for example, it could be very much comparison fueled, but perhaps you're seeing people over this period and it is very much eating disorder kind of trying to think of the way I can word this. Eating sort of content in the sense of like, holidays is hard for me, my eating disorder is doing this or it's doing that. Like, I know that for a lot of people, it can often feel like, well, I'm not struggling that much, or I'm not, I'm actually enjoying myself. So then I feel so much guilt, and my eating disorder makes me feel so much guilt because
Mhm.
I'm not suffering like them over this period. And I like Christmas. So, like, am I not meant to like Christmas now? Because, does that mean that, no, like
Exactly.
that, and again, it will be a future episode that we talk about because it's
Yeah,
such a huge thing to talk about and a huge topic. But being aware of that, and actually, like, you don't need to compare yourself to those people either. You're allowed to enjoy things. You're allowed to, have a great time and not feel like it means anything other than you had a great time, and that's a really good thing and a positive thing.
exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly. And
yeah,
another thing on this comparison in terms of a real life scenario, sorry, not real life, you know what I mean, like real world, so
yeah.
everyday
Off
life,
kind of social media. Yeah,
yeah, offline experiences.
yeah.
Try to sort of detach yourself from certain expectations, especially like when it comes to if you're going to these events and you're comparing your plate to everyone else's. Just remember that other people's plates, they're not in eating disorder recovery. Then so their plate will look different to yours, or it might look different to yours. It might be smaller, it might be larger. You know, you're like you don't know you're on a meal plan, or if you're choosing to stick to your meal plan, do that. But also don't like monitor what other people are doing.
It has nothing to do with you.
It has nothing to do with you. And
Your
I
eating
can
disorder
guarantee
will try to, but it has nothing to do with you.
exactly. Your plate is what it is. Your plate is suited to you, their plate is suited to theirs, and that's all it is. That's all, Comparisons just set up expectations for ourselves and only leads to feelings of inadequacy. That's all they do. That's
Absolutely. Yeah.
and there's no point adding that extra level of stress to you. So give yourself a break. Like just be like, I think of it. I have enough on my plate proverbially right now. I don't need to worry about yours.
Absolutely. Like, I think, I always explain that, like, you're already walking across glass and that glass is really painful and hard to get to the other side. Why are you lighting your glass on fire by, like, that's how I always explain it, because, like, it's hard. Glass hurts when you walk on it, right? And that's, if you kind of symbolize that as eating disorder recovery, by comparing yourself and looking at, what other people are doing, or I should be doing this, or I should be worse, or I should be whatever. You're just lighting your glass on fire and, you're walking across it anyway. Why make it even more hurty? Because, like, ouch.
I love that. You know what this needs? Fire.
Right?
No, you're so right.
I'm appealing to you there.
No, I get it. It makes perfect sense.
Absolutely. But also, like, okay, so we know eating disorders do compare. So if you must compare yourself, have a really good think about the people you're comparing yourself to.
Mm-hmm.
Is their life a life that you want? Is their life peachy and, do they have everything that, I guess might constitute to a full life? Perhaps not. So, like, if you're going to compare yourself to people, at least choose people that, you actually want, their life is actually a life that you might want.
That is a great point. I'm so glad you said that, because I was thinking about it in my head as you were saying, I'm like, oh, you know what? If you are going to compare yourself to someone, sometimes comparisons aren't all bad.
Yeah. And there's a lot of merit in that. And I always remember somebody saying to me, when I was going through recovery, like, if you're going to compare yourself to people, at least choose good people to compare yourself to. So, like, for example, I think of my partner who just, like, I think I sent you a meme the other night, Ash, that, like, I wonder what it's like to just not have mental illness. Like, like, he's just the most healthy, like, mentally well person I know, like, so balanced, just so, like, calm, and, like, not really much phases him. Just doesn't have mental illness, essentially. But, like, I think of him, for example, right? Like, in his kind of eating patterns, and, like, God, sometimes he'll be eating a meal and he'll leave, like, a bite of food. And I'm like, you're going to finish that? He's like, no, I'm full. And I'm like, what do you mean you're full? Like, you've got a bite left. He's like, well, I'm full. Why would I eat it? It was just as simple as that. Or, like, I'm full, but oh my God, I really want, like, it's just so just nothing else to it. So, like, if you've got those people in your life, or perhaps it's like, I have an auntie who, she fucking is bossa, she's sassy, she's, whatever, or, like, her life is really cool, or, perhaps I have someone else, a friend that has kids and I really want kids, and her relationship with her kids is just so beautiful. And, there's this whole heap of scenarios of people. Like, if you're going to compare yourself to people, at least choose people whose lives, like, are actually good, not whose lives are just cycling in and out of hospital, or whose lives is around restricting food or exercise or, that sort of stuff. Choose the people that, like, are actually helpful.
Exactly.
Yeah.
100%.
So on that, and I think this kind of taps into that a little bit as well, be kind to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think there's so many ways you can be kind to yourself, but it could be a really tough time, and there could be many instances where you might mess up, and that's actually okay. Like, we don't expect perfection. Nobody's perfect.
Exactly.
Like, that's really hard to be. Like, nobody is. So, practice forgiveness for yourself. What does that look like? And that could be, right now it might be forced. Right now it might be like a really, like, that feels an unnatural type thing, but I'm going to try as best as I can. And that could look like, I've messed up. I'm being really hard on myself. Okay, how do I kind of deflect from that? I might use distraction. I might jump in the shower. I might go for a swim. I might, do something grounding. I might do something completely different. So, try and tap into that as much as possible to be able to just move on from the situation, because things may not go according to plan. In fact, nothing really does go to plan, really.
Yeah.
You may feel awful for it. You may feel like, why can't I just enjoy this time like everyone else does? I guess.
And that's where you need to just stop comparing, because maybe
if you taps into that again, right?
Or even just reframe that. One day I'll enjoy this time like everyone else does. Someday, as long as I continue on recovery, I will.
Totally. Or maybe, like, I am enjoying this time, but that bit there was just really hard, and I need to step away, and I need to take some time for myself, and then I can come back and continue enjoying. Or maybe I need to go find my person, or maybe, whatever that looks like.
Yeah. Or, like, I can't wait for this to get better, rather than this is so hard. Like, maybe, like, I know it's so hard to sort of reframe things when you're in those moments, but, it's just like the very small thought challenging that you can do in those moments can try and help you enjoy it just a little bit more. Sometimes you feel like you might have eaten less than your meal plan. That's okay. It's this is a hard time. Sometimes you might eat more than your meal planner. You
Let's
might
just
feel
get
you've
through
eaten
it.
too much. Like, who doesn't overeat on Christmas? Who doesn't have an
Also,
eating
there's
disorder? Right here.
I mean, well, yeah, I was gonna say,
Food is
and I mean,
great.
what even is too much, right? Like, I don't even think
Exactly.
that's a thing. Like, there's no definition for that for anybody. So, like, it kind of is just what it is. And right now, yeah, it feels really, really hard, and that feels really out of control sometimes for some people. That's just really like a hard concept to think about. So you don't have to. Like, it
No.
can just be.
When I say I've eaten too much, it's more like I am so
My
full because
stomach hurts.
my stomach hurts, and like if I eat any more than this, like I'm gonna feel
100%.
even worse. But
Yeah.
it's really good, and there's only one prawn left, so I mean, I'd be rude not to,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, exactly right. Like, it just looks like such a combination of things. And then you like, cool. And, for a lot of people, I know for you, Ash, and me, and, other people who have recovered or people who haven't had an eating disorder, kind of just is, right? Or perhaps
Exactly.
the people who are recovered, it still is a bit hard to think about, or, whatever. It's okay. Like, I think we put so much meaning to things that we don't need to do.
Exactly. Just be kind. At any point it gets overwhelming, just when in doubt, go back to your plan that you've created with your treatment team.
Distract.
Go and listen to this episode again and see like, oh yeah, that was a
Yeah.
good idea. I'm just gonna leave. I'm just gonna
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
leave.
Or go get in the hot shower, or go get in your car and listen to a song that you really
Or go for
love,
a
or go
walk,
and
or just,
cuddle
just
somebody, or like whatever it
exactly.
is.
Yeah.
Don't try not to linger on one thing, because in the big scheme of things, it's okay, and it's
Yeah.
yeah.
And I mean, I know I already kind of talked about it, of this whole, yeah, it's been a big year, and oh, what if the only thing that you did was, live in my eating disorder? You survived the year, which is freaking
You got
awesome.
through another year. Like, it's
Exactly.
freaking hard.
It is super hard. And I
Yeah.
think while, yes, a lot of the holidays is around food, 100%, it's also around spending time with family, if that's a really important
Yeah.
value to you.
Yeah. Tap into your values.
Yeah,
Yeah.
if it's just time for you to take a little break, it's a time like maybe you're in the Northern Hemisphere and it's snowing, and that's amazing. Or if
Oh,
you're,
and get to see snow.
if you're down under, then it's like a chance to go and enjoy the summer if that's your thing. And,
Yeah.
those kind of things, like taking a look at what this time of year could look for you, and the things outside of food, what is important to you,
Yeah.
and use this time as reflection,
Yeah.
so that can be another thing to think about. And of course, if you are in a situation where you don't have a lot of family around, I know that the holidays can be even tougher. So make sure you have support networks in place.
Mm.
If you feel like there are lots of things that you can do. If you want to go volunteer somewhere where you can be around people, if that's going to be helpful for you, go to friends. Lots of places do orphan Christmases,
I was
which
going
is
to
like,
say that a lot of places do,
you know,
like, especially particular nationalities, or,
yeah, expats.
yeah, 100%. Or like, it could just be, I want to get together with my friends, and
There are always like places that there are things that you can do and you can go
yeah,
to.
yeah. Or just stay home, and
Or
if you
just
need
stay
to just
home.
be in your house and stay away from everybody, and like spend the day doing your thing and watching movies, cool. That's
Yeah.
great too. Whatever it is.
And if things do get really, really tough, always remember that there are those emergency services that you can contact, which, as always, will be linked in the show notes for you and are available on our website. Again, link in the show notes. So I know that this time can be really, really hard. So please take care of yourself.
Yeah.
So the last thing that we're going to do before we finish up is we're just going to give some tips for carers. A lot of the time, I think, there's a lot of expectations for carers to do a perfect job, or that be constantly on the lookout and things like that. We'll go through some of them, but I think the main one is, allow for a bit of leniency. You can't expect them to be the perfect eating disorder patient, quote unquote. This is a very stressful time. Like, look for some of the flexibilities with you and your loved one, and even talk about it. Like, I think, rather than you sort of hovering over them and thinking, oh no, what are you doing now? We need to fix this. What are you doing? Maybe
Mm.
just say, okay, how about we figure out some strategies ahead of time, and
Mm.
if something goes wrong, like what should we do? And rather than sort of policing this behavior, working with them.
Yeah, it could be a bit of a harm reduction thing to start thinking about, like, okay, so is it really actually that helpful to, hyperanalyze or, ensure they're not doing that particular one thing when in the big scheme of things, perhaps they're in a situation that's, otherwise really unsafe for them. So is it actually helpful to police, at this moment what they're eating and how much they're eating? Maybe not, because I know that also their anxiety is really, flipping off right now because of the family that's around. So I guess having to think of that in the context of things as well and choosing your moments and choosing your battles, I think is really important.
And on that, learn your loved one's boundaries and respect them, and then listen to them if they are overwhelmed. Like, I know
Yeah.
that it could be hard, be like, if they are saying, no, I need to leave now.
Yeah.
I know you might be thinking, no, I just want to stay and enjoy this. But if they
Mm.
are saying, I'm pulling the ripcord on this, I need to,
Mm-hmm.
activate my parachute, I need to leave now, you need to
Mm-hmm.
respect that. And even if that means you take them home, you come back.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Or it
You're
might
allowed to
look
do
like,
that.
yeah, like having I think people forget often that people are humans as well and are more than
Yes.
capable of conversations and like actually being asked things. So, like,
Yeah.
again, it's that human behind the patient, right? So, like, it could be taking them away for a second, going, what's going on? Okay, I hear that you need to leave. Do you think that, you might be able to sit in the car, or do this for a bit because I just want to go and, I'm just in the middle of a conversation, or I'm just wanting to go check on this person. I'm just wanting to, I want to stay for this bit longer. Can we have can I de-escalate this a little bit rather than just,
Yeah.
going straight to 100? It could be like, okay, I hear you want to leave. Cool. What's going on? Actually talking to them.
Yeah.
Like,
And maybe it's just, hey, how about we go and drive around for half an hour? You can
yeah,
time it. And then
yeah.
if you're still
Do we
not
want to
feeling
go for a
great,
quick walk? Do we want to
yeah,
go and sit somewhere quietly? What
yeah,
do you need?
exactly. Just de-escalate. And if still at the end, then that they are still
Mm,
saying, I can't go back in there, then that's fine. Then
cool.
that's the plan that you take. So I think it's all about, again, having that flexibility and being aware of those boundaries. Like, I know that we already talked about it already, but, like, sit down and make those plans together just
Mm,
so that you both know and are aware of these strategies that you both want to use during this time, and have sort of different levels of escalation and have different, flexibility, and build flexibility into those plans, and then also be prepared that things may not go perfectly. Like we
yeah,
said,
and that's
just
okay.
like just like your loved one, things may not go perfectly. You just need to be prepared. Things won't go perfectly. And if they do,
Yeah.
great. If they don't, you will implement your plan. It doesn't mean that the holidays are ruined or anything like that. No, it's
It just
that
right now
things
this
just went a little
it's
bit
hard.
awry.
Yeah, and that's
That's life.
okay. Yeah. And I guess, yeah, like you said, sitting down, and that could be, do you want to create a signal with your loved one? Is there something that, what does it look like and what are the different levels and, that scaffolding? What is, but also, again, tapping into the, hey, you did really well. Hey, you're coping really well. Hey, like, I don't want to highlight if it's going to trigger them and make them think on it too much, but like maybe at the end of it, like, I'm so proud of you for, you did so great just then. And I could see that things were hard, but like, I guess it's tapping into that concept of, you don't need to play the role of of your loved one's dietitian or their psychologist. It could just be, I'm your loved one, and I want you to, I want you to feel, if perhaps you love Christmas, or perhaps holidays, perhaps you love the holiday season, or perhaps you don't love the holiday season. Just, kind of tapping into that a little bit and being like, hey, like, I really saw you and you did incredible. Like, I'm so proud of you. But yeah, absolutely talk about it and have a plan, because then you've got it all covered. It's all there. Like, you're
Exactly.
both on the same page, which is really
Yeah.
important. Which kind of, I guess, taps into the, not making a huge fuss over,
Yeah.
things. So, like,
Oh, that's the worst thing, is when you feel like the spotlight's on you and everyone's watching you
oh
and those kind of things. Like, yeah, don't make a fuss over that person who is actually going through it. Like, they already feel like they're a massive burden to you.
yeah,
Like, let's be honest. And they don't want attention being brought towards themselves, and, like,
no,
just be
exactly
mindful
right.
of them, but don't, like, hover over them.
Nah,
I think the biggest one, more than anything, is remove all diet talk. I I'm underlining every single line of that sentence. Yeah. And honestly, as well, if anyone does bring it up, shut it down. Shut it down.
it's just so boring. Like, why is that a topic of conversation? Like, especially, you've got people together. Think of better shit to talk about.
Like, the comments of, like, "Oh, I shouldn't eat this last bit." It's like, well, maybe you should, because then your mouth will be shut.
I love that.
I'm
That's so
sorry.
good.
That's it. Like, at least then you've got
Then you
something in your
can't
mouth
talk.
and you can't talk anymore.
And it might even look like, other
Feel free to
ways
use
or other
that.
things. Totally. I like that. I'm going to use that one. I mean, I'm very lucky that I don't have to worry about that so much in, the people that are around me, but because they know that I'll fight them. But
I mean, maybe don't, in case you don't want to start fights.
don't
But
like
also,
fight them. Yeah, like, I mean, it depends, right? But
you can think it, don't say it.
well, I mean, or, it depends. But
yeah.
like, even, right, like it's, I think, a huge thing, I guess, especially if somebody is in recovery and a part of that is weight rehabilitation. You might be getting family members that haven't seen them for quite some time, or have known, I guess, been, unwell, and, might see them and might say the comments of, you look so well, or I'm so happy to see you looking so great or healthy or whatever.
Or like when we were talking to Steph on our episode of the different cultures,
Yeah.
she was saying that a lot of the time, and I don't mean to generalize here, a lot of times in Chinese culture, that's the way that they show affection, is by being like, honesty is one of the best things that you can give to someone. And then someone might say, oh, you are looking bigger. And that is a sign of, I'm recognizing that this is a change in you, and this is what I'm thinking, and I'm being honest with you. I hope I'm not bastardizing that too much. But that just reminded me of that when she was talking about
super triggering.
Yeah, it can be super triggering. And then just kind of being aware of those kind of things. And even if it means going up to when family members arrive and you're saying, okay,
Can you just not comment?
Not comment on anything about X person's body. They're doing a great job, and those comments just aren't helpful.
Just looking out for it. And I think even having a conversation perhaps with your loved one previously, like, you know that freaking Aunt Shazza might comment on your body, and I've tried to let her know not to, but just in case, I just want to let's create a little bit of a plan around that. I just want to remind you that when Aunt Shazza says that, she doesn't mean anything maliciously. She means it in a relief kind of thing. Having those like, depending on where your loved one is at, having those conversations as well.
Or if someone does mean it maliciously, then say, we're going to put in a plan to deal with that, those kind of things. First step is for you as the carer, don't have any diet talk. That's a great start. Then to make sure that you're a very welcoming, non-diet talk sort of space over the lunch.
And it could be a conversation previously with people. It's so freaking boring. Like, especially if you haven't seen people for ages. Why is that like a topic of conversation? Like, freaking, you could talk about. Have you seen that reel on Instagram recently, Ash, that it's like, I can't remember, I'm going to butcher it, but it was like, I saw it yesterday, and it was like, she asked me if I had lost weight, and it was like, and then I thought about all of the other things that she could have asked me, do you think about dying? Do you think about life? Do you think about what it looks like to do this? Do you think about what your mother, dreamt of? Do you think, like, all of these questions that you could ask people that has nothing to do with bodies, weight, shape, anything? Like, it's so like, boring.
But I left a really toxic job and I started a new one, and I'm really happy. But thank you for asking.
Right? There's so many freaking things you can talk about.
Yeah.
Like, so many things. Oh, get more interesting. But anyway, I think it's
oh my God, that needs to be on a t-shirt. Get more interesting.
Just be more interesting.
Be more interesting.
Oh my
God.
I like, it's like, I can't remember who said it to me once. Like, and I'm gonna swear here. So like
that's been a problem.
Blasphemy warning. Like, it's gonna be a good swear word, but like, just don't be a cunt. Like, just don't be like, it's like,
I might be that.
Just don't be bleep it out. Just don't be a shit person. Like, it's simple, right? Like, just be a good human. Like, it's simple.
Just don't be shit.
Just don't be shit. Like, just be better.
I can't believe it has to be that. We have to say that.
But like, and it's like that simple as well, right? But I think it's important we bring into this conversation as well folk that are in fat bodies, right? So, we talk about this, don't make comments on bodies, and, prep your loved ones to not make comments if they've lost weight or about their body, or if they've gained weight, or if they're looking healthy. I think it's really important to, think of this in the context of fat bodies as well, because that's going to look a bit different, because we know we live in a fat phobic world with lots of weight stigma. So there might be relatives that are
food police,
derogatory there. And so be aware of that and
saying, should you be eating that? Yes, I should, because I need nourishment. Thank you. And also I like it. And also it makes me happy. So go away.
And do you know what? There could be so many different ways you can do that. And I think I recommend everyone to go and look at perhaps Nick McDermott's work
Mm-hmm.
in, all of the systems of oppression, that kind of work with fat bodies and weight stigma. But I think that would be really helpful for people perhaps around this time of year as well. And this is totally not a plug. I don't mean it for to be. But, I know that Nick has just recently – well, we love Nick. So I know that she's just released her the Fat Positive Practice Guidebook. So I think that would be a really great – and it can be a digital copy. I think – you can print it out if you want it to be, hard copy. But I think could be a really good resource for people to have a look at perhaps before we reach the holiday period to consider to help safeguard your loved ones.
Link in the description below.
Yeah, check it out in the show notes. But I think that's all stuff that we could be doing to help make this time easier for people. And why wouldn't we do that? And that's another really important thing to consider.
Yeah, there's another, again, this podcast is basically just an Aubrey Gordon stan account at this point. But I remember...
Aubrey, come on our podcast.
Yes, please. And there's an article that she wrote on Medium, which, again, I will link it in the description. But it's an article called 27 Responses to Never-Ending Diet Talk. It is a member-only story, so you just need to sign up to Medium. And have an account, but it goes through a really great responses, specific responses such as, what's wrong with being fat? I'm not interested in having this conversation. Life's too short to get anxious over one meal. I don't make rules about food. Diet talk reminds me of high school. No more diet talk. Repeat as necessary. And I don't participate in food shaming. Those kind of things. Change the subject. And the last one is walk away. So I will link that in the description because obviously Aubrey has the whole thing. And also check out there are other articles on there which are really, really great.
Absolutely. So helpful.
Which can talk to this a lot better than we can. So those are just some resources for people who are fat and who might struggle around the holidays, especially with diet talk and people making really unnecessary comments about your body.
Yeah.
And then just the last thing to sort of bring this back to carers is make sure you enjoy your time too.
Yeah.
Being a carer is super stressful and you deserve some time and a break too.
Absolutely. Because we know that well carers, they're the link to that is that there are better outcomes for loved ones. And that's a solid fact, right? So, enjoy yourself, figure out, it might be thinking of times where you take time to yourself as a carer, where you take time away, where you participate in something that's nourishing or replenishing for you. It's okay to remove yourself from situations. If you're feeling really triggered by your loved one, perhaps because we know that can really happen. Or if you're feeling I don't know what to do in this situation, it's okay to walk away for a bit. It is okay. And I know because I speak to so many carers that get this, but, they don't get to walk away from their eating disorder. And they say it to me all the time, I'm glad that you get to walk away, but I can't because it's in my head. I get that and it can be really hard, but it's actually really important.
But also you never actually walk away from being a carer.
No, exactly.
You don't walk away from worry.
No. You need the time as well. You need to be looked after as well. You need the break. And in fact, it's just as important that we focus on that as we do for those who, might have an eating disorder or, are suffering. So yeah, needs to be such a huge focus on that for sure.
Yeah. So carers, you do an amazing job.
We freaking love you.
We freaking love you. You're doing such important work and you are really a factor in keeping this person safe, your loved one safe. So don't underestimate your role and your influence, but also make sure that you take time for yourself to be nurtured, nourished, loved, and also just to be stress-free a little bit. You deserve some time.
Fun.
And have some fun. Yeah.
This is actually I'm going to tap back into my love for Christmas here because sorry.
Go. Go.
Well, I think it's just for me, it's just I love it because for me, for majority, a lot of my life, I've hated it. So it's always been this, time of year that I've stressed about and hated and dreaded upcoming. And now it's kind of oh my God, I freaking love it. It's fun and it's just it's okay to have fun. It's okay to enjoy it. It's okay, it's also okay to hate it. It's okay not to love it. And it's not we just need to take away all these expectations and just like tap into what you need to be doing for you that will make this time great for you. If like I know for you, Ash, for example, it's going over to a frickin' Europe.
Yes. When this episode drops, I will be a little European holiday.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's going to be
I'm
fun.
not at all jealous.
Honestly, I think the biggest thing I'm looking forward to is seeing Adam's face in London and for the first time.
Magical.
Yeah, because I've lived in London for 6 months. I'm going back. Actually, this is one thing I do want to talk about is I'm going back to reclaim it. Right, I had a very sort of traumatic time. I'm sure you can relate to this, Cal. This is for a future episode where we could talk about in terms of recovery maintenance and all that kind of stuff. But actually, when I was in London, when things weren't going well, it was a really, really stressful time. And the one thing I did to cope was I actually ended up reverting back to some ED behaviors. And because it came so naturally to me. And even this was after I was recovered for a while. And so that was part of the trauma. And I had, crazy depression and, and ideations. I don't want to go too much into it, but I will eventually. But I think I'm so glad that I get to go back and reclaim it. Not only am I going back with a return ticket, which is a big thing, I'm going back with my husband, who I love, and I'm going back at one of my favorite times of year to go. Shout out to Adam. Love him. One of my favorite times of year where it's cold. And I'm just really looking forward to not just reclaiming, but also seeing it through his eyes as well. And that's the sort of joy that I will. And you know what? I'll probably I act like I'm such a Grinch, and I am, but I'm slowly starting to warm up to the idea of Christmas.
Well, I think it's tapping into the things that you like about it, right? Rather than because it can be this big spectacle and this big for a lot of people, And so I guess, as I said before, in saying that, my family, when we do Christmas, we don't do Christmas in the sense of this big thing. It's our thing. And I guess that's, another version of that's what you need to tap into.
Really just figuring out what Christmas means for you and tapping in what it means for you. And
it doesn't have to be a traditional sense.
Yeah, for me, it's on the morning of Christmas. Adam and I, we watch the Christmas episodes of Seinfeld or Festivus.
Yeah, I love it.
The In-Betweeners and Peep Show. Those are the three that we watch because it's the Christmas special.
Yeah, that's what you do on Christmas. Yeah, yeah.
So we do that. That's our, and we have almond croissants and mimosas. Well, I have mimosas. He just has orange juice because he's sober. Yeah, so that's just our little Christmas
having your
thing.
own little traditions, right? Yeah. So one thing I love about, obviously last year was my first Christmas with Blakey, and she was only 7 months old then. So, I still started our Christmas traditions, but obviously she had no freaking idea what was going on. She was just like, oh my gosh, where are we? What are we doing? Why is mum overly joyous today? But and she's still a little bit too young this year, but it's, I can start to I've taught her how to say Santa, and she says Santa now. It's very cute. But tapping into what other things that maybe you want to make some traditions that is just, for you that you do. I remember mine used to be before, I had my own little family, I always loved to go for a Christmas morning surf. That was just what I did to ground myself for the day. So I'd go for a surf, and that's how I'd start my day. And then I would come home and I feel a bit more capable to, participate and do things. But it's just finding the little things that, perhaps makes it an okay time for you, or that, that brings you a little bit of joy. I cannot wait for Adam to go to frickin' Europe. I'm so jealous. I just cannot wait for you to go to Winter Wonderland and for him to see Winter Wonderland. And oh my gosh,
Well, don't worry. All episodes will come out as per usual. We've got a bunch that are scheduled to go. So this one's coming out before.
Thanks to our incredible editing crew. Shout out to Ash.
There's one that's coming out just before Christmas, which honestly I cannot wait. It is going to be. I think it's one of my favorite episodes ever. So
I know which one it is.
Keep your ears and eyes peeled, and make sure you subscribe because it's going to be amazing. Anyway, so don't worry, all the episodes are still coming out as usual. But I hope that this episode was helpful for you and you were able to take something away. And if you have any, other tips, make sure, there'll be stuff on the socials. So make sure you leave comments below. Let us know what your holiday traditions are. And, just let us know what you're doing to keep yourself safe.
Yeah.
But that's all for today's podcast. Thanks so much for listening. You can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, or wherever you get your podcasts. And don't forget to subscribe and rate us wherever you are listening, because it really helps us with the pod and makes sure you don't miss an episode. You can follow us on Instagram at pavedwithgoldpod, send us an email, pavedwithgoldpod@gmail.com, or visit our website, pavedwithgoldpodcast.com. All of those links will be in the show notes, with all the resources we talked about, as long as extra stuff, all the links, you know where to find them. Show notes.
Check the show notes.
Just go there.
Just look at the show notes, okay?
Until next time, stay safe, and we will talk to you again soon. Bye.
Bye.
This podcast is general in nature and has not taken your personal circumstances or medical history into account. We are here to share our own experiences and the things that we have found helpful throughout our own personal recovery journeys. Please remember that each person's journey and circumstances are different, and not all of the information contained in this podcast may be relatable to you. It's important you consult your own GP or recovery team to seek out tailored advice before making any important decisions relating to your own health and recovery process. If you have found any of the content in this episode distressing, please contact your care team or a medical professional. If you or someone you know is in crisis and needs help now, please contact emergency services in your region immediately.